Alright, before we go ahead and get started with making the table and manipulating the data to do what we want, I want to talk a little bit about keyboard shortcuts. I'm going to be using keyboard shortcuts almost exclusively in these videos, and I encourage you to follow along and listen to what I'm saying and try it out for yourselves. Because using keyboard shortcuts is going to be one of those things that separates us from being good at Excel to being great at Excel. Because using keyboard shortcuts is going to make us incredibly more efficient, and it's going to unlock possibilities that weren't present before. So almost anything that you can do with a mouse and clicking in Microsoft Excel, you can actually do with the keyboard. And being able to go ahead and perform tasks without ever needing to grab the mouse and waste time is going to make us more efficient, and it's also going to make us more familiar with the Excel environment and the options that are available to us. So I'm going to get started with a couple basic things that we're going to need to know, because I'm going to be going ahead and using them throughout the videos, and I want you to be familiar with them. So let's start with something very basic, which is pressing the Tab key after entering data into a cell. Pressing the Tab key is going to move the active cell to the right. Simple enough. Hitting Enter will, of course, move it down a cell. If you're entering a row of data, it'll move it back to a cell, or the beginning of the range. Hitting Enter right here just moves it down. Well, that brings up an interesting point. If I have a cell of data like this and I want to change it, I can't hit Enter or else it'll move down. How do I go inside and change it? You do that actually with the F2 key. F2 is going to be interesting as well. It's going to be very useful because we're going to want to go inside and change data very often. F2 will enter into a cell. You can hit Enter to get out of it, or you can hit Tab to go to the right. I think that's pretty simple. So let's go ahead and, using the Tab key, let's make the heading for the table that I'm going to be making. I'm going to be making a table of NFL standings, so it might be handy to have another window with the NFL standings available. But I don't want to have to keep clicking down at the bottom of my bar to look at it. I want to just be able to shift back and forth. And a good way to do that with a PC is by pressing Alt and Tab together. The Alt and Tab keys are going to bring up this little window right here, where you can change your active window. So I'm going to hit Alt and Tab to the NFL division standings. And now if I just hit Alt Tab really quickly, it'll bring me back to the last active window, the previous one. So I can just now hit Alt and Tab to just check back and forth while I update the standings to make sure I'm right, not touching the mouse and saving time. So I'm going to make a table of the standings because I'm making a tool that's going to be able to compare teams' records from year to year. So I'm going to need, obviously, a data table of the standings of each year, and then I'm going to go ahead and perform manipulation on it. So let's start by making this table. I want to have the conference, because I might want to do something with AFC and NFC. I want to have the division. I want the city, team name. I want their wins, losses, and I want to know if they made the playoffs, because I might do something with playoff records. And as you can see, that doesn't look very nice. These are overspilling. So I might normally want to go ahead and click this in between the cells to extend it out. But remember, we're trying not to touch the mouse. We're trying to use our keyboard as much as possible. And I want to, before I go ahead and do that, I need to introduce you to two very important concepts. What I call the jump feature and what I call the highlight feature. Because this is how I'm going to be selecting data throughout the duration of these videos. If you hold down the Control key in Microsoft Excel and then press the arrow keys, it's going to do something very interesting. So if I am on this cell and I hold Control left, you're going to see that it actually jumps through the blank spaces and goes to the nearest cell with data on it. So if I hold Control up, it jumps through the blank spaces. Control is if there's blank spaces in the direction that you're pressing, the Control arrow key is going to jump through all of them and go to the next active data. Well, what happens if I press Control right? Because there's nothing to the right. It's only blank spaces. Well, it'll actually jump to the end of the document. And you can see here, if I press Control down, end of the document, that's over 1 million cells that it just jumped to instantaneously. So you're going to be able to actually get through large ranges of data very quickly using the Control key and the arrow keys to jump through it. If there's text to the side that I'm pressing, so what happens if I press Control left here, I'm actually going to go jump through the text to the nearest blank space. So I can jump through text to the nearest blank space, or I can jump through blanks to the nearest active text. And both of those are going to be very useful for us. The highlight feature, you do that on the keyboard by holding Shift. If I hold Shift and press up, down, left, right, that's going to go ahead and highlight cells. So if I wanted to highlight all the cells on top, I could Control jump to it, hold Shift, and press left to highlight them all without ever touching the mouse. Now that's great, but what's even better is if I can jump and highlight at the same time. So if I hold Control Shift and press left, I'm actually going to jump to the end of it, but also highlight it. So I'm going to highlight all these cells in the range, no matter how long the range is. If I press Control Shift down, I'll highlight to the nearest active cell. And this range can be thousands of cells long, and I can just press Control Shift and arrow, and I can highlight all of them. So that's going to be something that's incredibly useful for us. Now, just outside of highlighting this entire range, what if I have these title cells up here, and I'm going to say, I want all the title cells on my document to be bold. I don't know how many I'm going to have, so I don't want to just highlight these, because maybe I add some. What if I could select the entire row? And that's really easy. If you just pressed Shift and Spacebar, you can highlight an entire row. Let me press Control B to make it bold. And now anything that I enter into this top row, it could even be down at the end, at the very end, which I just Control Shifted to, it's going to be bold. So I made an entire row bold. I don't know how many titles I'm going to have, so that's going to be very useful for me. Now, like I said before, I want to extend these cells out so that they don't overlap. I could just click on it, but that's not very fun. And remember, we're trying to minimize the amount of time that we use our mouse. So I'm going to introduce you now to something else that's going to be a very important concept, and that's pressing the Alt key. If I go ahead and press the Alt key, I don't need to hold it. I can just press it. You're going to see that these letters pop up underneath each tab. Those are keyboard keys. So if I press the A key for data, it'll take me now to the Data tab, and all these features will be available with keyboard shortcuts. So maybe I wanted to filter something, I could just press T to do it. So that is going to be a really easy way to get to the ribbon and perform things in Excel using the data key. So I want to go ahead and I want to fit all these. I want to fit the cell width to the text inside of it. So let me start by highlighting it. Control Shift arrow. I'm going to hit Alt. I want H for the home key, for the home tab, and I want Format, which I see has an O under it. So I'm going to hit O, and Auto Fit Column Width. There it is with I. And there it goes. It goes ahead, and using only my keyboard, I've now auto fit each cell's width to the value that's in it. And that's a really quick and easy way to dynamically update, to dynamically adjust as I'm typing without ever having to go to the mouse. So if I type something in here and it's big text and it's longer, I can just Alt HOI and change the width to fit it as I go. So that's going to be really useful for us to do. So let me go ahead and start typing in a little bit of my data, and we'll go along, and anything that I need, I'll explain how to do it with the Alt key. So let me Alt Tab back to NFL standings, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the data into my Excel spreadsheet in this order. So I'm going to start with the AFC East. So Conference is AFC, Division East, City is going to be New England for the Patriots. They're first. And look how this extends over. I want to adjust the width because this is annoying for me to look at. Alt HOI. There you go. Team name Patriots. Wins 13, losses 3, playoffs. Yes, they made the playoffs. Now I'm looking at this. This looks all right for how my spreadsheet wants to be set out. I think that these cells though should be centered. I think that would help me, and I think that would look a lot nicer. So I'm going to Shift highlight them, and I'm going to hit Alt, H for the home key, and AC, which you can see right here under the center text button. So AC, I just remember that by thinking all center. I think that's a very simple way. And here we go, my text is center. Still haven't clicked the mouse once in this entire video. Now, as I go to fill this out, I notice something else. I notice that I'm going to use the term AFC 16 times. Now, I could copy and paste it with my mouse, but remember, we're trying to minimize the amount of time that we touch the mouse. And there's a really easy way in Excel to copy things down with using keyboard shortcuts. And you don't need to copy it. You can just hold Shift and select the cells and do what's called a paste down. Pressing Control D will just paste down the data in the active cell into the range you have highlighted. It takes 1 second. You don't need to copy and paste things. It's very simple. I know that I want to use East 4 times. Let me go 3 cells down. Control D to paste down. And I've just like that set up a data sheet a lot easier and kind of in the format that I want. So, okay, so let me keep typing the teams in. New York Jets. They went 8-8. They missed the playoffs. Miami Dolphins. They went 6-10. They missed the playoffs. And the Buffalo Bills went 6-10 and missed the playoffs. Now, I see that these cells are not centered. I want them to be centered just like these. And I also want the entire column for the rest of the spreadsheet to be centered, so I don't have to keep going back and doing this. This is a perfect time to use my Control-Shift highlight to select all the cells, hit Alt-HAC, and center all of them, just like that. And now everything that I enter in here, no matter what it is, they're all going to be centered. So the next one is going to be the North. I can just Shift highlight, Control-D, paste down. And this is a really easy way. I'm working through setting up this spreadsheet, and this might have taken me a really long time to get all this data in if I wasn't using the keyboard so efficiently. So in the next video, I'm going to go ahead and finish filling out the table and begin to manipulate the data and show you some cool things you can do with the table that might be helpful. So I'll see you in the next video.